Welcome to a new Tank Encyclopedia voiced article on the Sh-1J Tankette by Marko Pantelic. Before we begin, we would like to thank all of our patrons, and especially team member Leander Jobse for his help with the illustration of this article. As the Yugoslav Royal Army was in search of new armored equipment, the Czechoslovak Škoda company was more than willing to offer its armored vehicle products. During the 1930s, a few tankettes were presented to the Yugoslav Royal Army, but performed poorly on testing, so a new vehicle was requested. The following Sh-1D tankettes achieved some success, and 8 were bought. But even this vehicle was deemed insufficient, and future improvements were requested. This would lead to the development of the Sh-1J, which was presented to the Yugoslav Royal Army, but was never adopted for unknown reasons. In the early 1930s, the Yugoslav Royal Army began a process of reforming and reinforcing its 2 cavalry divisions with additional equipment and armor. Each cavalry division consisted of 2 to 3 cavalry brigades with 2 regiments, 1 artillery squadron, a cycling battalion, and other supporting units. It was planned to attach a motorized regiment to each division supported with armor, like light tanks or tankettes. From the start, there was an issue as to where to acquire this new equipment from. While France and Yugoslavia had good military cooperation, France was unwilling to sell its latest tanks, as it wanted to dispose of the older surplus models first. Through the French, Yugoslavia had at its disposal around 56 Renault Cagras M28 and FT tanks, some having been bought and some received as military aid in the 1920s and 30s. By April 1940, the Kingdom of Yugoslavia managed to acquire 54 relatively modern R-35 light tanks from France. The Yugoslav Royal Army had even considered acquiring some Soviet tank designs, such as the T-26 or BT series. However, mostly due to political reasons, this was not possible. Yugoslavia negotiated with Poland and Czechoslovakia about acquiring new equipment. The negotiations with Czechoslovakia were somewhat successful, and delivery of only 8 Škoda Sh-1D tankettes was agreed. These were known as the T-32 in Yugoslav service. The Sh-1D was perhaps the most modern armored vehicle in the Yugoslavian Royal Army. Its general performance, however, proved to be disappointing. While the 37mm gun was one of the best for its time for its size, the running gear proved to be unreliable, with a poor design that needed constant repair and was easy to break. Another issue was its armor thickness, which the Yugoslav Royal Army never deemed sufficiently strong and required to be improved. For these reasons, the Yugoslav Royal Army officials demanded from Škoda a new tankette with improved running gear, armor, and a main weapon. Škoda developed a much improved Sh-1J tankette. The prototype without the gun was completed in May of 1938. The Sh-1J designation is an abbreviation, with Sh, or the S with Karen, standing for the manufacturer Škoda. 1, Roman numeral in this case, represents the vehicle category, 1 for tankettes, 2 for light tanks, and 3 for medium tanks. And J stands for Jugoslavski, Yugoslav. Depending on the source, it is also marked with a capital J, but if we take into account that the Sh-1D prototype was also marked with a minuscule d, we can assume that the Sh-1J designation is correct with the lowercase j. Škoda began changing its naming system for its production vehicles in 1940 or 1939, depending on the source, and this included the Sh-1J. There are some disagreements between different authors about its later designation. According to B. Nadoveza and N. Đokić, the name was changed in May of 1939 to T-1D with a Roman numeral 1, where the capital D stands for diesel. Author D. Predojević mentioned that the name was changed to T-3D with an Arabic numeral 3. To complicate the matter more, authors H.C.Doyle and C.K.Kliment state that the T-3D designation was used for the previously built Sh-1D tankette. The new Sh-1J tankette had many visual similarities with the previously built Sh-1D. The most obvious change was the redesigned and improved suspension, which had proved to be highly problematic on the previous version. It consisted of 2 pairs of large road wheels on each side, suspended by leaf spring units. There were 2 front drive sprockets, 2 rear idlers, and 8 return rollers, 4 per side. The vehicle was equipped with a 3.77-liter diesel engine, giving 44 kilowatts or 59 horsepower at 2200 RPM. The vehicle's maximum speed was 31 kilometers per hour, but the cross-country performance is unknown. While tested with the Yugoslav Royal Army, the operational range was listed as 6 hours, not the usual distance in kilometers. The main armament was the Škoda A9J 47mm gun, with 42 rounds of ammunition. The gun could elevate between -10 degrees and +25 degrees, and traverse 15 degrees to the right and left. The secondary weapon was a ZB VZ-30J machine gun with 1,000 rounds of ammunition. The superstructure consisted of a simple rectangular armored casemate, with the commander's cupola on top. The armor plates were held in place with rivets. The front armor was 30 mm thick, the sides 15, and the rear 12. The Sh-1J had 2 crew members, the driver, who also used the machine gun, and the commander, who was at the same time the gunner and loader. This was far from ideal, but for Tankette standards of the era, this was completely normal. To gain access to their battle positions, the commander entered through the cupola, and the driver through the hatch next to it. The crew could observe the surroundings through 2 large observation hatches in front, with an additional smaller one located on the driver's side. For the commander, there was no need for a side observation hatch, as he had the cupola. The Sh-1J prototype was presented to a Yugoslav military delegation during March of 1939. After examining the vehicle, this delegation had shown interest in the potential purchase of some 108 vehicles. By the end of 1939, the sole prototype was transported to the Kingdom of Yugoslavia for further examination. It is not clear what happened during the examination, but no production orders were placed by the Yugoslav Royal Army. Possible reasons for this were that it was either deemed unsatisfactory or that more modifications were required, but the sources are not clear on the matter. It is also possible that the Yugoslav army officials simply lost interest in tankettes and wanted a proper tank. In either case, the vehicle was returned to Škoda, where it was taken over by the Germans. Its final fate is unknown, but it can be assumed that it was scrapped during the war. While the Sh-1J had many improvements regarding the armor, the armament, the running gear, and the engine, for unknown reasons it was never adopted by the Yugoslav Royal Army. Had it been put in service, it may have been one of the best tankettes of the era, mainly due to its armor and armament, as most other tankettes had only machine guns and light armor. That is all for this article. Please check out our website where we will be releasing new articles on the regular. You can also find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Reddit, and Discord. Please also consider donating either through PayPal or Patreon to help us keep improving our website. Until next time, keep us in your sights.